You've probably heard men say things like, "I'm not ready for marriage yet," or "I don't see myself settling down anytime soon." But the truth is, when a man finally decides he wants to marry a woman, it's rarely about time, age, or even love alone. It's about something far deeper, something that awakens quietly inside his ego. See, men don't commit because they're asked to, and they don't settle because they're pressured. A man commits when three very subtle emotional triggers make him feel that choosing that one woman elevates him, in his eyes and in the world's eyes. And what's interesting is that most women never realize when they're activating these signs. They often confuse emotional connection with readiness, affection with commitment, or passion with permanence. But a man's mind doesn't work that way. For him, the decision to marry isn't born from how much he loves. It's born from how much he feels that loving you makes him more of who he wants to be. Think about it. How many women have loved deeply, given their all, shared their life, and still watched a man walk away saying, "I'm just not ready"? That phrase doesn't mean he doesn't care. It means those subtle signals that touch his ego were never truly triggered. Because when they are, everything changes. Suddenly, the same man who avoided commitment starts talking about the future. The same man who feared responsibility begins to crave stability. And the same man who once said, "I'm not the marrying type," starts imagining a life where you are the center of his peace. Most women chase words, promises, and reassurances, but men are moved by feelings they can't even explain. When something quietly tells him, "Being with her makes me feel like a better man," he starts seeing you not as an option, but as the direction of his life. In this video, we're going to explore those three subtle signs that touch the male ego and turn a man's hesitation into certainty. But before we dive deep into that, you need to understand something essential about how a man's emotional logic works, because it's completely different from what most women imagine. A man's ego isn't just pride. It's the inner compass that defines his worth, his power, and his identity. Every decision he makes, especially about love, is filtered through this internal lens. Does this make me feel stronger or weaker? Does this bring me peace or confusion? Does this add to who I am or take from me? When love answers those questions positively, commitment becomes not a burden, but a form of fulfillment. That's why it's not the woman who gives the most who stays in his life. It's the woman who makes him feel most himself, the one who reflects back the version of him he's proud of. And that reflection, that emotional mirror, is what his ego craves more than affection, more than attraction, even more than love. If you've ever wondered why a man can date someone for years and never propose, but marry another woman after only a few months, the answer lies here. It's not that the second woman is better. It's that she unknowingly touched these three ego-driven emotions that turned a feeling of connection into a feeling of destiny. So, as you listen carefully to what's coming next, I want you to think not just about men in general, but about your own story. Think about the man who left, the one who hesitated, the one who always seemed halfway in and halfway out. Ask yourself, did I ever touch his ego in the way that makes a man proud to choose? Because that's the invisible key, the one that opens a man's heart from the inside. And once you understand this invisible code, once you know what these three signals really are, you'll stop trying to convince, chase, or prove anything. You'll realize that the power to inspire commitment doesn't come from giving more. It comes from being more of the woman who awakens his sense of purpose, admiration, and emotional pride. Because when those three signs quietly align within him, something shifts. The game of uncertainty ends, his doubts fade, and suddenly, marriage isn't a risk, it's a reward. Let me tell you a story that reveals exactly how these invisible signs work inside a man's mind. There was a woman named Sarah. She had been with Michael for almost 4 years. Their relationship was stable, full of love and small traditions. Movie nights, morning coffees, shared dreams of traveling one day. But there was one thing missing. Every time marriage came up, Michael would change the subject. He would smile, kiss her forehead, and say, "We're happy as we are, aren't we?" At first, Sarah believed him. She told herself that maybe he needed more time, maybe he was just scared. But as the months passed, she started to feel invisible in her own relationship. Her friends were getting engaged. Her family asked questions. And Michael, the man she imagined her future with, seemed perfectly content living in the comfort of someday. Sarah tried everything. She became more affectionate, more supportive, even more patient. She tried to inspire him, to remind him of their memories, of their bond. But the more effort she put in, the more distant he became. It was as if every act of love she offered only made him retreat further. Then one day, something shifted. Not in Michael, in Sarah. She stopped waiting for a proposal that never came. She stopped making their relationship her entire identity. She started focusing on herself again, her goals, her friendships, her independence. And slowly, something in Michael began to change. He noticed she wasn't as available as before. She wasn't texting constantly. She wasn't waiting for him to call. When they talked, her words carried a quiet confidence. She laughed more, not the kind of laugh that seeks approval, but the kind that comes from peace. And for the first time, Michael began to feel something he hadn't felt in years. The fear of losing her combined with a deep admiration for the woman she was becoming. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about perception. His ego, that invisible core of every man, began to feel something powerful. She doesn't need me, but she still chooses to be here. That subtle realization triggered the first of those 3 signs inside him. The feeling that loving her didn't make him smaller, it made him stronger. She wasn't asking for commitment anymore. She was inviting him to rise to her level. Weeks passed, and Sarah continued her silent evolution. She stopped over-explaining, stopped seeking reassurance. When Michael canceled plans, she didn't argue. She simply said, "It's okay, maybe next time." Not coldly, but with calm detachment. And that calmness shook him more than any argument ever could. Because men don't respond to pressure. They respond to absence of it. When a woman stops demanding proof, a man is forced to look within and ask himself if he's ready to lose something real. And that's exactly what happened. One evening, while having dinner together, Michael looked at her and realized something had changed forever. The woman who once waited for his approval no longer needed it. She wasn't fighting to stay. She was simply living fully, with or without him. And in that moment, something hit him deep in his ego. He didn't want to deserve her someday. He wanted to earn her now. The next week, he brought up marriage himself. Not out of guilt or fear, but because he felt proud of the woman she had become. For the first time, marrying her wasn't a responsibility. It was an achievement. What Sarah didn't know was that she had unknowingly activated 2 more emotional triggers in him. The first was admiration. He saw her as a woman who elevated his life instead of depending on it. The second was alignment. She reflected the version of himself he respected most. Calm, mature, focused. This is what most women never see. A man doesn't decide to marry when he's told he should. He decides when his ego feels safe and inspired around a woman who mirrors the kind of man he wants to be. Sarah's transformation didn't manipulate Michael. It awakened him. And that's the quiet truth behind many relationships that go from stagnant to lifelong. When a man's ego begins to associate love not with loss of freedom, but with the rise of identity, that's when he starts thinking about marriage, not as the end of his independence, but as the beginning of his purpose. And that's what this story is about. The invisible shift from comfort to clarity, from hesitation to decision, from one day to, this is the woman I want to build my life with. To understand why men only think about marriage when certain emotions awaken inside their ego, we need to look beneath the surface of what they say. Because when a man says things like, "I'm not ready," or "I'm not the marrying type," what he really means is, I haven't felt those 3 internal confirmations yet. Every man, no matter how emotionally distant, confident, or guarded, operates through an invisible emotional system built on pride, identity, and validation. He might never admit it, but deep down he's constantly asking himself, who am I when I'm with her? And that question determines everything, because the moment a woman begins to make him feel proud of who he becomes in her presence, his ego links that feeling with her existence. That's the foundation of emotional attachment in men, not need but identity enhancement. So let's break down these 3 subtle signs that touch a man's ego and make him start thinking seriously about commitment, family, and a future. The first sign, he feels emotionally elevated by you. Most women try to connect through affection, attention, and care, which is natural. But for a man, love isn't about how much you give him. It's about how much better he feels about himself when he's with you. When a man feels emotionally elevated, he associates your presence with pride. He starts thinking more clearly, acting more decisively, even dressing better. You become a mirror reflecting his potential. And ego-driven as it may sound, this is what awakens his deeper motivation. It's not manipulation, it's resonance. When you stop trying to make him feel something and instead live in a way that commands quiet respect, by showing emotional balance, confidence, and boundaries, his ego begins to crave your presence because it restores his sense of power. That's why many men only realize the value of a woman after she steps back. The distance removes emotional noise, and suddenly he sees her as the standard, not just another option. His ego connects her absence with a drop in his own emotional energy. The second sign, he feels emotionally safe to be vulnerable without losing admiration. Men are raised to believe that vulnerability equals weakness. They're taught that showing confusion, sadness, or fear makes them less masculine, but every man secretly desires a place where he can exhale, where he doesn't have to pretend to be unbreakable. When he finds a woman who allows that without judgment, his ego experiences something rare, safety without shame. That doesn't mean being his therapist or excusing his flaws. It means being emotionally intelligent enough to hold space without taking control. When you respond to his struggles with understanding instead of attack, he feels seen instead of analyzed. And that's when his mind begins to make long-term associations. He stops seeing you as someone he loves and starts seeing you as someone he could build a life with, because love makes him feel alive, but safety makes him feel anchored. Every man needs a space where his guard can lower without his respect disappearing. And when he feels that with you, when he knows that his imperfections don't make you lose admiration, his ego ties its sense of peace to your presence. The third sign, he feels he can grow under your influence without losing control. This is perhaps the most powerful one, because while love feeds his heart, growth feeds his ego. A man will always resist control, but he will always submit to inspiration. The woman who makes him want to be better, not by pressure but by example, becomes unforgettable. When he sees you pursuing your own goals, managing your emotions, and not relying on him for happiness, he subconsciously feels challenged, in a good way. His ego says, "I want to be her equal." And that's the moment commitment begins to take shape. He starts thinking not about escaping, but about matching. He doesn't want to lose a woman who makes him feel both proud and motivated. And when he looks at you, he sees the version of himself he wants to evolve into. Steady, self-aware, emotionally mature. You see, love alone doesn't hold a man. It's respect combined with emotional curiosity. When he feels that being with you keeps him growing, he no longer fears commitment. He sees it as a privilege. Now let's connect these three signs, elevation, safety, and growth, to what happens inside a man's inner psychology. His ego constantly seeks three sensations: admiration, autonomy, and legacy. The first is admiration. He wants to feel that you see his value, not just his actions. The second is autonomy. He wants to feel free, not trapped by love. The third is legacy. He wants to feel that choosing you adds meaning to his life story. When these sensations align, his ego receives an emotional signal that says, "I can trust her with my identity." And that's the moment when the idea of marriage becomes appealing, not intimidating. That's why a man might tell his friends, "She's different," not because she's prettier or more affectionate, but because something about her energy made his ego feel respected, safe, and inspired all at once. So remember, the real key isn't trying to change him or prove your worth. It's embodying a calm confidence that allows his ego to recognize your value on its own. When you stop fighting for validation and start standing in quiet certainty, he feels the shift instantly. Because men can't explain it, but their hearts always know when they've found a woman who doesn't compete with their strength. She complements it. And when that happens, the thought of losing her doesn't just hurt. It threatens his very sense of identity. That's when a man starts thinking about marriage not as an obligation, but as an instinct. Here's the uncomfortable truth that many women never realize until it's too late. When these three ego triggers are not activated, a man can love you deeply and still never see you as the one. He might enjoy your presence, adore your kindness, and even miss you when you're gone. But he won't feel emotionally elevated, safe, or challenged to grow. And without those internal signals, his ego stays asleep. He feels affection, but not admiration. He feels comfort, but not direction. That's when relationships start to fade quietly, without a clear reason. You sense distance. The conversations get shorter. He's present but detached, not angry, just emotionally unavailable. And you start wondering what changed. What changed is invisible. His ego stopped receiving emotional stimulation. He no longer feels inspired. He feels predictable. And for a man, Predictability without admiration is emotional suffocation. This is why some women do everything right and still end up watching the man they love walk away, only to see him marry someone else months later. It's not about timing, or luck, or destiny. It's about whether his ego was ever truly touched by her energy. When those three signs aren't triggered, love becomes routine. He stops chasing, he stops dreaming. He starts seeing the relationship as something that drains rather than fuels him. And no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. Because what's missing isn't your effort, it's his emotional ignition. Think of it this way. A man's heart may fall in love, but his ego decides who he'll build a life with. If his ego feels diminished, confused, or unappreciated, it will start seeking elsewhere the feelings it craves. Admiration, validation, pride. He won't even know how to explain it. He'll just say, "Something feels off," or "I need space," or "It's not you, it's me." But those are only the surface words. Deep down, his inner voice is whispering, "I don't feel like myself here anymore." That's how men drift away emotionally before they ever leave physically. They stop planning, stop imagining, stop leading. The relationship becomes a loop. She gives more to make him stay, and he withdraws more to protect his ego. It's a silent collapse, one small detachment at a time. But the good news is this doesn't have to happen, because the same emotional switches that go off can be turned on again, if you understand the pattern. The urgency lies here. The longer a man stays in a relationship where his ego feels numb, the harder it is for him to ever reattach. The longer you chase reassurance, the less he feels the need to pursue you. And the more you try to fix it by doing more, the less impact it has because what his ego craves is not effort, it's emotional recognition. He needs to feel that your presence awakens him, not just comforts him. He needs to see that being with you makes him rise, not rest. When those sensations disappear, he unconsciously starts comparing, not people, feelings. He remembers how he used to feel, strong, admired, inspired. And that emotional nostalgia pushes him away faster than any argument could. You can't compete with that by logic or persuasion. The only way to restore his emotional focus is to reawaken those ego triggers, to become once again the woman whose energy makes him proud of himself. And this is why awareness matters now, not later. Because every moment you spend proving your worth is another moment reinforcing the imbalance. You don't win a man's long-term commitment by convincing his mind. You awaken it by reaching his ego through emotional mastery. When you understand this dynamic, you'll stop feeling desperate for reassurance. You'll stop chasing answers from him, because you'll realize the real answer is within the energy you project. If you want a man to think about marriage, the urgency isn't to push the conversation, it's to shift the atmosphere. The longer you operate from need, the more invisible you become to his ego. The moment you operate from quiet power, he starts to see you again. Because deep inside every man, no matter how mature he seems, his ego is searching for one woman, the one who makes him feel both safe in his heart and proud in his identity. Lose that balance and you lose his long-term focus. Restore it, and you'll never have to ask where you stand. So now you understand the truth most women never get to see. Men don't fall in love with pressure, nor do they stay because of habit. They stay, and they commit, because their ego finds peace, pride, and purpose in the woman they choose. Love might make him desire you, but these three emotional triggers, elevation, safety, and growth, make him respect you, admire you, and commit to you. When you embody calm confidence, he feels emotionally elevated, because your presence brings him clarity. When you offer emotional safety without judgment, he feels protected, not by control, but by connection. And when you live your life with purpose and strength, he feels inspired, like being with you helps him evolve. That combination is rare. It's magnetic. It makes a man look at you not as an option, but as the definition of what he's been searching for. And here's the secret that changes everything. When you stop trying to prove that you're worth choosing, and start simply being the kind of woman who triggers admiration in his ego, he naturally begins to prove himself to you. His actions start changing. His tone softens. His plans become more serious. You'll notice he starts asking questions about the future, not because you brought it up, but because he can finally see it. You won't need to push, remind, or question his intentions, because his behavior will speak louder than any words. A man who feels these three signals activated inside him doesn't need to be told what to do. He wants to move forward. He feels proud to choose you because deep down, Choosing you feels like choosing himself at his best. And that's the real essence of commitment. Not a cage, not an obligation, but an alignment of identity. If you've ever been the woman who gave everything and got nothing back, who waited for a man to be ready, or who felt like you were always one step away from being fully chosen, understand this. It was never about your value. It was about the emotional language you didn't know he spoke. Now you know. So stop chasing explanations and start mastering energy. Stop trying to win through words and start winning through presence. Be the calm in his chaos, not the storm that demands clarity. Show him through your actions that you don't need to compete for love, because love already recognizes your worth. When you embody that quiet certainty, his ego feels safe to rest. His heart feels free to open. And that's when you'll see the transformation, when the man who once avoided the idea of marriage begins to build his life around you. Because the truth is simple. Every man wants to marry the woman who makes him feel like the best version of himself. Not the one who demands it, the one who inspires it. So remember these words whenever you doubt your impact. You don't have to chase a man into commitment. You only have to become the woman who makes his soul whisper, "She's the one." And when that happens, you won't have to ask where the relationship is going, because he'll be the one leading the way. If you found yourself in these words, don't just listen, reflect. Think about how you show up in love, what energy you give, and what space you allow. Because the woman who learns to move from calm strength instead of anxious effort becomes unforgettable. And for a man, unforgettable is the first step toward forever.